people still face challenges just getting from one place to another. Public transportation can be limited or irregular. Roads might be in poor condition, and some areas are simply too far from essential services. So for people living in these places, mobility is not just about convenience. It's about access to opportunities, education, healthcare, and livelihood. At the same time, we also see a lot of potential in rural areas. These communities have strong local connections and creativity. They often come up with practical, homegrown solutions like flexible transportation services or shared mobility systems that fit their needs. We believe that by introducing smart and sustainable approaches, whether through technology, better planning, or policy support, we can help strengthen these local efforts and make mobility more inclusive. That's why we organized this webinar. We wanted to open up a space to talk specifically about rural mobility, to look at what challenges people are facing, to share ideas and innovations that are already being tried in different parts of the country or another world, and to think together about how smart mobility can reach everyone, not just those in big cities. Our main objectives today are to highlight the realities, challenges, and opportunities of rural mobility in the Philippines, to present potential technologies and policy directions that can support sustainable transportation outside urban centers, not like Metro Manila, Cebu, or above, and to connect people and ideas so we can learn from each other and explore possible collaborations for the future. We also hope that today's discussion will help us rethink what smart mobility really means. It's not only about mobile apps, sensors, or data. It's also about people, communities, and the way transportation can make everyday life better and more resilient. This topic is also very timely as we continue recovering from the pandemic and dealing with effects of climate change. Improving access and connectivity in rural areas becomes even more important. Rural transportation plays a key role in linking people to markets, schools, and services, and in supporting regional development as a whole. So I hope today's webinar will inspire new ways of thinking, spark useful conversations, and perhaps even plant the seeds for future partnerships that can help move us toward more inclusive and sustainable mobility for everyone. Once again, thank you for all joining us today and for sharing your time and interest in this topic. Thank you very much.
So in behalf of Dr. Trishah, I'll be presenting to you the current transport issues in the municipalities, rural areas in the Philippines. So may I share my presentation? Makikita na po ninyo ang presentation ko po.
Yes, ma'am, we
Hello.
can see
Yes,
it. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we can see it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you po. So Dr. Trishah is also attending equally important activity today with our congressman and governor about the soil health with the Bureau of Soil and Water Management. So I'm Ofelia PROCHINA. I'll be presenting to you the issues po. So this is the current transport issues in municipalities, rural areas in the Philippines, the case of Agusan del Sur. Parang nahihirapan ako mag-move.
Take your time lang po.
So this is the
There you
outline
go.
of my presentation. So one is provincial profile. Second is why mobility matters. Number three is defining factors of mobility. Then fourth is the area of focus. And five is key takeaways. So for the basic profile of the province of Agusan del Sur, our province is a landlocked province and is considered the fourth largest province in the country, making it a vast resource-rich and strategically important inland province of Mindanao. So majority of our land area, 62%, cannot be privately owned because it's according to the land class, it's forest land. So DNR po ang my jurisdiction for this. And only 38% is A&D land. More than one-third of our populations are IP, so mostly found in our upland areas and river towns. So we have this needs creativity, ensuring these upland communities are able to access needed resources. So yan po ang data. So our location is in the northeastern Mindanao, bounded by four provinces: Agusan del Norte, Davao de Oro on the south, Misamis Oriental and Bukidnon on the west, and Surigao del Sur on the east. So we have topography, elongated basin formation with Mount Magdiwata Range in the eastern and Pantarong Range in the western side, forming a valley which occupies the central longitudinal section of the land. So majority of our 322 barangays are upland barangays, 185 of which are mostly located in timberland areas and are unable to own land. We also have wetland barangays located in Agusan Marsh area. So in Agusan del Sur, rural mobility is fundamentally shaped by the province's unique geography, primarily its long valley, mountainous sides, and extensive marshlands. So these terrains influences everything from essential trips for goods and services to the province economic lifeline, with major challenges emerging during the rainy season. So we have type 2 climate. So this has no dry season with a very pronounced maximum rain period. So monthly average rainfall volume of the province is 315.05 mm based on a 16-year pattern, and its rainfall volume is high on the monsoon months, November to February. So for the resource significance, I don't know. Ano bang nangyari? Ayaw kasi magbaba if mag-arrow down po ako. So we have Agusan del Sur Road Network overview. So we have a national roads, which is 472.38 kilometers. Unpaved road, 17.29 of which of the total. Then percentage of total network is 10.63% for the paved maintained by DPWH. For provincial roads, we have a total of 482 kilometers, and unpaved, of which unpaved length is 319.89, and it's 17.40% managed by the provincial government. And for the city, a total of 143.29%, and unpaved is 3,170 kilometers. So this is managed by local governments. For our total road network, we have 1,097.20 of the total road network. And unpaved is 3,507. So mataas pa po ang mga unpaved roads namin dito sa Agusan del Sur. So if as we can see from the pie that the good is 30% only for the road inventory, and for the fair, that is 25% of the pie, and 45% are poor to bad. Of the total road length, that is 4,604.55 kilometers, and we still have not met the standard road density of 1 kilometer per square kilometer. We only have 0.51 kilometer per square km. Considering that we have big land area of the province. So for the resource significance, we have high agroforestry significance. So Agusan del Sur is the timber corridor and agroforestry food basket of the Caraga region. In the new regional physical framework plan, our role in Caraga is agroforestry innovation, wood processing, mineral processing, culture, and heritage and food basket of Caraga. So we still have the role of the food basket of Caraga, considering that we have we are top producer when it comes to rice and corn and other commodities like oil palm. So we are top when it comes to the production in Caraga, as well as even in Mindanao. So the province largely dominates the production of agri-products in the region. So as I've said, we are top producer of rice and corn, and not only that, including other industrial crops. So the Agusan Marsh Wildlife Sanctuary is a key biodiversity area and a wetland site designated to be of international importance under the Ramsar Convention. Sorry, talagang nahirapan ako pag-move ng slides. So for the challenges and opportunities, we have poor connectivity, high geographically isolated, disadvantage, and conflict-affected areas, or known as JIDCA, included in the nationwide. So for the poor connectivity, we only have 45% or 2,063.74 kilometers out of the total road network are still in poor and bad condition. Then 49% are JIDCA barangays, 157 JIDCA barangays out of 322 total barangays. Then majority are IPs. So IP's population is 278,120. So they are located in the 5 river town municipalities. So why mobility matters in Agusan del Sur? One consideration is terrain, mostly mountainous and rivers, traversed by the Agusan River Basin. Another is rivers defines rural settlements and movement of the people. And then upland and river terrain shape access to markets and services. So these are the some pictures of our present mode of transport. So other countries cannot believe why one motor can have many people no or passengers. So ito po ang ating problema dito. So mga informal mode of transport. Then transport issues, one is we classified our transport issues. So for the transport modes, routes, one is limited public transport along secondary and tertiary roads and local roads due to expired or revoked franchise, particularly in rural areas, especially during the COVID time. Yun po, wala nang mga sasakyan kasi expired na ang mga franchise nila and still waiting for the route plan. So this is the local public transport route plan or LPTRP. So this is one of the bases for the franchise of routes because it was already laid down all the routes for the province. So LPTRP of some cities, municipalities are not yet approved, implemented, including the province. So sa munisipyo at saka sa city, we only have approved 8 out of 14 municipalities and component city. So ito po ang basis of issuance of franchise to public utility vehicle and only 6 are approved. So ito po ang Sibagat, Trento, Talacugon, Loreto, La Paz, and San Francisco. And even for the province, LPTRP, just recently we had a notice of compliance. So next is doon pa sa sa SP pa po for the ordinance. And then proliferation of informal transport modes in primary and secondary highways such as tricycles, tri-wheeled vehicle, or known as bao-bao or tok-tok despite prohibition because we know that now there is some policy nga hindi sila pwede sa national highway but still because of no um legal transport mode or meron naman pero hindi enough. So ito nag-ano sila, nag-proliferate. So for the number 2, transport issue is for on the laws and policies. So one is poor enforcement of traffic transport policies laws. Second is improper use of road right of way. Just like it became a lagpan, garage, and drying pavement of rice and corn, considering that we don't have enough facilities for the drying of our rice and corn, and then some households just use the road in drying the rice and corn produced. Then second, no standard vehicle lifespan and condition. So even too old, poor condition of vehicle, still bumabiyahe pa rin. Then no fixed tariffs tricycle for as well as habal-habal for goods and commuters. And then increase of transportation cost due to the presence of dispatcher and canvasser. And then overloading and overspeeding in unregulated waiting travel time. Since we don't have policy for that, we don't have facility for the stops, kung kailan sila mag-wait. and then sa mga terminal, so hindi pa masyado natin na regulate ito. So for number 3, transport infra facilities, we have no proper designated loading and unloading area. Kasi as I've said, we don't have established stops, no? Wala pa tayo niyan, unlike mga other countries that they have sophisticated terminals as well as bus stops. So wala pa tayo dito sa provinces at saka sa rural areas. So not all CMLGUs in the province has terminal for PUVs and PUVs as shown below. So mga temporary lang mostly po ang mga um, terminal po dito. So next topic is defining factors of mobility in Agusan del Sur. So one is seasonal disruptions. The region's weather has a major influence on mobility. Floods and landslides during the rainy season, heavy downpours can cause widespread flooding and landslide, damaging roads and bridges and cutting off access to affected communities. So as for floods, we have several municipalities which are affected, especially the urban centers, no? We have Bayugan City, even Prosperidad, San Francisco, our economic center and commercial center, even Rosario and Bunawan. For landslide, very vulnerable is the Sibagat, the first municipality from Butuan City. Then impact on livelihood. Since Agusan del Sur's economy is dominantly agriculture, these disruptions hinder the transport of goods, limiting farmers' access to markets and increasing transportation. We don't have much redundant roads. That's why if mablock ang isang road, so maapektuhan ang mga mobility of goods and people mobility. So yan po. Kasi hindi masyado naka-establish pa dito sa province ang mga redundant roads. So public transport, standard provincial buses and jeepneys operate on main roads connecting municipalities and cities like Butuan and Davao. However, their fixed routes and schedules are not efficient for those in more remote barangays. Kasi more on dito sila sa national. But yung sa mga nasa loob or mga far-flung barangays as well as yung mga inland na mga munisipyo or river towns, hindi na masyado ang buses. So we need transport. However, ang existing pa rin are mga motorcycles at saka yung mga habal-habal. Then informal and localized transport. So informal modes like tricycles and habal-habal, motorcycles for hire are crucial for last mile connectivity in areas not served by formal public transport. So this is a common characteristics of rural mobility in the Philippines. So siguro hindi lang sa province of Agusan del Sur. So mostly siguro sa mga probinsya din na may mga rural areas. So hindi yung mga nasa national highway na mga areas po. So area of focus, so there is disproportionate impact of poor mobility on fundamental human needs and systemic effects on economic and social development in rural areas, while urban mobility issues often concern convenience and efficiency. In a context like Agusan del Sur are about access, resilience, and survival. So these are the area of focus for the mobility in rural areas. We did. Meron ba pa pala sa mobility challenges and gaps? So access to essential poses significant challenges for access, particularly for those in remote land area. Not all barangays has access to healthcare or mga RHUs. So that's why we have it affects the delivery of emergencies and transportation. So another is economic disadvantages. The difficulty of transport. So why focus on rural areas? In rural areas, mobility is a human rights issue, healthcare access, food security. Number two is investing in rural mobility offers a greater return on investment, especially on livelihood creation, reduce rural-urban migration. By climate change, infrastructure infrastructure vulnerability and population. Another is rural mobility addresses the issue of inequity at its source. It's bridging the access gap and empowering communities as well. So for the education, one is treat rural, another is use Agusan cells. Then third is focus on measurable, implementable results. And fourth is shift from studies to tangible impact. So towards smart, inclusive, and resilient rural mobility. So smart mobility ensures every barangay has reliable access to opportunity, and then support Agusan del Sur in transforming transport into a tool for inclusive growth and poverty reduction. Considering that we have high poverty reduction in the province, it is still 21.4% in 2023. So let's work together. Thank you. So that's all for the presentation. Sorry po sa pag ano ng slides. kasi naka-PDF po siya. Thank you po.
Thank you, Ms. ENP, PROCHINA, for the presentation about the current transport issues in the municipalities and rural areas in the Philippines, specifically from the presentation is from Agusan del Sur, the province of Agusan del Sur. So moving forward, we'd like to go now to the next presentation, and this will be on sustainable mobility starts small, lessons from local innovations. This will be presented by Mr. SEKI Yosui, Executive Officer of the Transport Planning Division of the Overseas Department of ALMEC Corporation. Mr. SEKI has 24 years of experience in urban transport planning, extensive expertise in developing cities, like formulation of urban transport, master plans, public transport policy, advisory, and others. He has project leadership experience across Southeast Asia and recently in Serbia, in Egypt, as well as island nations like Palau, Solomon Islands on bus system projects. He previously served as overall coordinator also of this training program sometime in ALMEC. Okay, so let's welcome now Mr. Seki Yusuf on sustainable mobility. Start small, lessons from local innovation. Mr. Seki, please.
Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I confirm you can see my presentation already?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah. Anyhow, thank you very much. And then I think I should turn off the video to keep the good condition. Okay. Okay. Anyhow, thank you very much to provide the very good opportunity to introduce the mobility activities. So you can see the title of my presentations. That is a sustainable mobility start as malls. Okay. Then so before I start my presentations, I'd like to share perspectives with all of you on the background and then starting point of today's topics. Recently, I think through my recently I'm working especially for the small island like Palau and also the Solomon Island, as well as in secondary cities across the Asia Pacific regions. Then, so I'm feeling there are common challenge and issues to improve the mobility conditions. Then, while the large metropolitan area often receives the greatest attention and investment in the transport sectors, but non-metropolitan area or island region are often left behind. Then I mentioned the mobility gaps with the such kind of the big regions. Then I think there are common constraints like displaced population or limited transport mode conditions or difficult sustaining a service or something. I think that situation is very similar. It's not only for the small island in Pacific Island, but also for your countries, especially in rural areas. Then in my presentation, so I want to focus how small scales and the local innovation can help close these gaps. Also, the core message from my presentation will be the sustainable mobility start with local, inclusive, and small scale innovations. Then I think now you can see the table of contents of my presentation. I want to deliver the 4 items you can see in this slide. Then first is I want to share the common understanding. What is the mobility gaps in the rural areas? Then after that, I want to deliver 2 case studies. The first case studies is the action in Palau. It's a very small island, but we are supporting to start the eco-friendly mobility buildings. That is our first introduction. Then secondly, I'm also now supporting to the Honiara cities. That is the capitals in Solomon Island. They are starting to make public bus modernization planning from informal situation to the organized bus services. That is the third topics. Then the last is I also want to share the what is the lesson learned and also the implications. Then it's understanding the mobility gaps, and then I think and today we are focusing in the rural area, or we can say the non-metropolitan areas or island. Then I think in Philippines, there's a many small islands. Then even the small island or small village, I think they surely need their mobility services. Then I think, in fact, the Troy schools or Jeepney, or I think they are still working or boat in some small island. There are the several small transport modes, but I think that is still limited, especially in rural areas. Then I'm also pick up the common issues in such areas. I think that is a common things like unreliable services and a difficult sustainable operation, especially for public bus. Sorry, and also I think even there's a need of the public transportation, but the market scale is very small. Then also I think our local resources is are very weak from the institutional supports. Then I think mobility is key for the social inclusion, including the access for the student, elderly people, and also the low-income groups. Then also I think economic vitality is also very important things, and then to connect to make a job opportunities or to visit to the market. Also for the tourist, I think the transport mode is very limited in the rural areas. Then of course there are environmental sustainabilities also important things. I think that things is common issues in the rural areas to make mobility services. Okay, then I want to move to introduce the cases of the Paros building eco-friendly mobilities. I think you are not familiar about the Paros. Then it's very small island, and then the population is less than 20,000 in nationwide. It means that it's very small island. Then before we support the project, you know, that is how can I say, the parallel is the car-dependent societies. So if the people move to somewhere, so always they take cars. So even the distance to the destination is less than 50 meters or 1 kilometers. Always they are taking cars. Then I think you can see the scenes of the downtown areas in the parallels, especially in the peak hours. So many car is running. So, but you know, there are such kind of the situations. There are many risks like climate impact, and also the car-dependent society is not so healthy condition and healthy lives for the drivers, and also unsafe for pedestrians. Then of course, it's cause of the traffic congestion, also inviting air pollution or limited island mobility is the weak, if not only for the island peoples, but also for the visitors. So the government of the parallel things, you know, that kind of situation is not sustainable and eco-friendly. Then they decide to start the public bus operation. And actually, so I'm now supporting that project as the one of the JICA experts because I think some of you know the name of JICA. So JICA supporting to Palaos to realize the eco-friendly transport environment. Then we build the fourth approach to realize eco-friendly mobilities. Then you can see the first one is, of course, modal shift from private cars, very important things. Then together with provide the public bus services, we start to encourage the modal shift from private car usage to the public bus usage. That is first things. Then secondary is we are also now inviting the low emission vehicles. So later, I introduce the first action to introduce EV vehicles. Then the third one is eco and safe driving of the buses. We are also train the bus drivers to keep the safety driving, also the eco driving. Then the last number 4 is the creation of new mobility cultures. Because there are most of peoples, they are using car always. So, but you know that we need to train them to change their mind. That activity was very important. Then I'd like to introduce one by one what action they start now. And of course, there are public bus operations, so that is the basis, and then it's very keen. Since November 2023, they start the public bus operation step by step, and then from a very small action, because at first they just operate 2 times per month. So when they open the night market, so they start the night market bus shuttles to connect downtowns to the places of the night market. So that is the first step. Then after that, they expand the services. So they call the daytime route buses. That is a daytime bus to cover the downtown areas from Monday to Fridays. Then now they expand the route to reach to some suburban areas. Also, the weekday service now, how can I say, the number of the trips and the operation now increasing. Also, from next month, January, they invite another 2 microbuses and also a route expansion boards. So that is their action recently. Then that is a green hub for future mobilities. Together with to start the public bus operations, one of the Japanese companies introduced the eco technologies demonstration like solar powered EVs. They call green hubs. You know that is a very small vehicles. Then from the solar panels, so they can cover the enough powers for the daily operations. So that is also the one of a new challenge in parallels. And another important thing is the empower bus drivers, like capacity buildings for the drivers. We are supporting Furis to provide the operational manuals for the manager and also for the drivers. Then in order to keep the reliable bus operations, the driver need to fully understand and follow the timetables. That is a very important things. And then my colleague, they provide the trainings how they can keep the reliable bus operations. Then also this is related to the items force to make new cultures. So even they provide a good bus services. If nobody know the bus services, it's no meaning. And then we visited to the elementary schools, which are located along the bus corridors. We are provides the information of new bus services. Also, we provide some interest traffic game. Then, the right side figures, the elementary student enjoy the traffic board games, and then they are understanding what bus services started in parallels. And it's a summary of the Para 1 lesson learned. Also, you can see there are 4 items. We are just starting a very small scales, but the scales is very, how can I say, smart. Then I think that is realistic, and then it's a good, how can I say, action. Then the pilot operation is, I think, suitable to start to provide the new mobility services. Then in case of Paraos, so they are thinking that service is not only for the resident, like island peoples, but also for the tourists. In fact, most of the foreign tourists, they can reach to the hospital or big supermarket after a public bus operation startings. I think that is a good things. Also, the empower peoples and build capacities is very important. The driver, especially the driver training, is very important and necessary for the reliable public bus operations. Then the last one is the linkage of the mobility with green technologies. I think the EV vehicles now, it's a good function and a good solution for the rural areas, I think. That is a case of the follows. Okay, continuously, I also want to introduce another cases in the Honiara cities, namely from informal to organized bus services. The situation of the Honiara cities is quite different with the Palaos. So before I start to introduce the Honiara city case, I want to say there are population scales in the Honiara cities. That is 140,000. Another word is 0.14 million. You know that is not so big cities, but it's still the capital city for the Solomon Island. Then, wait a moment. That is the overview and the context. I think a situation of the public bus services in Honiara is very similar in rural area in Philippines. It's not modernize their bus systems in theirs. Bus services are run by mostly by individual bus owners and operators. So once the drivers get the license from the city councils, they can freely operate buses, and then most of the driver come to the central market to catch the passengers. So, but you know, since that condition is very freeze, it's not a good condition in the entire cities. So that's why now the local government thinks to make how to modernize the public bus systems in the cities. That is the situation in Honiara now. Then this is a current challenge in theirs. Number of the minibus is more than 1,000. Then, so as I say, there are mostly it's private owned, but it's not regulate wares. Then there are fair prices. Also, it's not adequate for the cities. And then there are enforcement by the city government also very weak. Always the driver want to catch the passengers in front of the market. I think you can see the right side figures. So many buses or van, they are waiting to catch the passengers. You know that is the cause of the congestion in the city areas. And the such situation, of course, it's not safe. And then, as I said, it's cause of the traffic congestion. But I think in the Pacific Asian region, that situation is a very common issues, I think. Then now we started several activities. At the beginning of the project, we conducted the bus operator interview service because there are, you know, the evidence is very important things to understand carefully the current situation. Also, we are supporting to make real route bus maps. And then I think you can see the bus maps in the right side. And then there are 11 bus routes in Honiara cities. Well, actually, I myself design that route maps. Before that, there's only the list. And then it's not understandable conditions for all peoples. So we are now starting to make a common such kind of the materials in theirs. Then we are also supporting to hold the regular stakeholder meetings among ministry infrastructure development, also the Honiara city councils, traffic police, and bus operators. So now we are supporting to make a bus modernization plan together with them. Then the educational activity also we are just starting because the education, especially for the kids, is very important to disseminate the information and to encourage the public transport usage. Okay, now it's still ongoing, but now we are making the modernization plans. We are now thinking the 4 steps in this slide. We are now just doing the step 1, namely understanding and the surveys, like to make a route map or conducting the series of interviews. Then parallelly, so we are also now design to make how can I say, how they can how can I say, do the consolidation of the individual bus operators. Together with the such kind of plans, we are now thinking to make fair policies or rules and then signage as well. Then step 3, you can see that is operator integration. Also, that is always very difficult, but this is very needed to modernize the bus services. Then I think our first challenge will be, how can I say, the city councils need to invite the small or medium-sized enterprises because in case of the Solomons, nearly 100% that is individual operators. But that is, uncontrollable, and then the consolidation is always very keen for the public bus modernization. Then after that, I think we want to propose some pilot activity or I think each getting or fleet management. I think that will be the last step for the modernization. Okay, then it's lesson learned from the Honiara cases. Anyhow, reform is very difficult. However, I think reform need begins with the evidence. So otherwise, I think consensus buildings is very difficult, and then the common understanding among city government, operators, and users. That is always very needed. Then, in order to consolidate the operators, but the always they are the current individual operators, and then they are very much sensitive to keep their lives. So that's why the inclusion of current operators is, of course, always very needed. And then there are continuous communication is always necessary. Then easier and small improvement also, I think, important, especially to make a common understanding, especially from the users. Even to make a bus route map or something. I think, always a small step is very important things. Okay, then lastly, I just summarize, and then I just mentioned what is the cross-cutting lessons and implications. I think a common challenge is we are thinking in the small market. Then the resources also always it's very limited. But we want to recommend start from the small scales, and then after that, I think scale up will be needed. Then also we should carefully find the local assets. In case of the Solomons, we are also focusing for the tourist. Also, the school, it means the student, and then the local market activity also important things, and then we should combine and make the what is the local asset. Then, of course, the social inclusion is very much important things. Then, I think nowadays electric vehicles is good things. Then I think not only JICAs, but also for the international donors, I think they are thinking how they support to the local mobilities. Then I think I recommend you to communicate with the international donors. Okay, then this is the final message from me. Okay, thank you very much, and then I'm very happy if you interest to my presentation, you can contact with my email address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Seki, for the presentation. Now we'll move forward to the DOTr transport plans and programs, providing regional and wait, sorry about this. Okay, so we'll now move to the DOTr transport plans and programs, providing regional and rural connectivity. This will be presented by uh, Mr. Glenn Luigi Garcia and Mr. Francis Troy CAIGA, and I'd like to introduce them. Mr. Glenn Garcia is actually a Senior Transportation Development Officer from DOTr. Mr. Glenn currently serves as a Senior Transportation Development Officer at the Department of Transportation, where he leads project development in the road transport sector. He's a licensed civil engineer and transport planner with a master's degree in urban and regional planning from the School of Urban and Regional Planning of UP Diliman. He specializes in planning and development of infrastructure projects, including BRT systems and integrated terminals across different funding structures. And outside work, Glenn maintains keen interest in the venture and startup space, particularly on products involving innovations in digital and mobility technologies. While Mr. Troy Caiga is Transportation Development Officer 2 of the DOTr, more known as Troy in his office under the Planning and Project Development Office of the DOTr. His area of focus is on the planning and the assessment of policies related to road-based public transport and active mobility systems. Currently, he is one of the leads behind the Active Transport Strategic Master Plan, or ATSMP, and prior to the DOTr, Troy had a short stint as a staffer in the House of Representatives. He earned a bachelor's degree in political science with a minor in English literature at the Ateneo de Manila University. So we would like to welcome Mr. Francis Troy Caiga and Mr. Glenn Luigi Garcia.
All right, sir. Thank you for the introduction. So, in terms of the presentation of what we will be doing this afternoon, so we will be doing it in phases. So some parts will be tackled by me, and some others will be tackled by Glenn. So that we're able to kind of have a comprehensive view of the overall presentation that we have for this afternoon. So, first things first. Next slide, please, Glenn. So I think it's important to first kind of define what rurality is before we proceed to tackling all the different plans and programs of the DOTr. Because ultimately, as they say, you cannot tackle what you don't measure, but also you cannot tackle the problem if you cannot properly define it. So I think this is why it's important to first kind of do this kind of a bird's eye view of what rurality means, especially here in the Philippines, especially which would be in contrast to what we see in other countries from Europe. Maybe their concept of rurality is very much different from ours, and our conception or understanding of rurality is very much different from those living in islands. So first thing first, rurality as we see in the Philippines really see and express in multiple forms. So for instance, we see rural coastal communities, and we see that across the entire archipelago, considering that we are an archipelago, so very much near to the seas. Secondly, we also see it in terms of the rural outskirts. So we see it outside of the urban areas. So we see rurality as well in that way. But also, equally importantly, we also see it in the uplands. We see it in the mountains, for instance, in Car, maybe, or even in Bukidnon. So the uplands are also a form of rurality. So as you see, rurality in the Philippines really expressed in multiple forms. And I think aside from that, it's important to look at what institutionally, how it is being defined. So taking that backdrop, so based on the PSA's 2020 census, rurality or a rural area, but more specifically a barangay, because that's the basic unit in the Philippines, it's defined as follows. So it's anything that is not any of the following. So if you are one of these things, you are a urban area, urban barangay already. But if you're not, you're a rural barangay or rural area already. So firstly, a barangay population of more than 5,000. So if you're not if the barangay doesn't have 5,000 people, that's a rural area. But if it's more than that, it's a urban area. So maybe try to also kind of appreciate that as we go through the presentation. Secondly, at least one establishment with 100 employees. That's a minimum. So if you don't have that, you're a rural area. Thirdly and last, 5 or more establishments with 10 or 99 employees and 5 or more facilities within a 2-kilometer radius from the barangay hall. So take that also in with you. And another note to take into account is really this one. So among the different facilities services that stated in that board resolution, which is dated, actually, apologies for that, it's dated 2003. It's not 2023. Apologies for that. So the only thing that's concerned transportation, it's seaport in operation. So that's only one of the mere things that are being considered as part of the basic facilities regarding it being either a rural area or a urban area. So take that into account as we go through again the presentation. Next slide, please. So given that backdrop, we see that rural transportation, rurality is expressed in multiple forms. And so what is important to understand from this point is that the way we have to approach it should be tailored fit to the context of these different areas. And this we can see with the different forms of rural transportation that we usually see not only here in the Philippines, but also in other countries, say ASEAN countries, for instance, in Thailand, Cambodia, where we see, for instance, habal-habal in their multiple forms. We also see tricycles. Sometimes, depending on the rural area, maybe they have jeeps for the long distance travels or trips, but not necessarily for the usual trips that they have. And then, of course, for those along the rural, coastal areas, they have the bangka, or minsan, if they have greater capacity to finance it, a motor bangka. So we see rural transportation in these diverse forms, meaning or kind of leading to us to a big issue, which is it has to be approached sensibly in multiple ways. And that requires kind of a policy that is not one size fits all, which is usually the problem with policies that sometimes they tackle the problem in one way or unitary manner. But in fact, given the experience, given the lessons learned, it should be tackled in this manner, context-based, tailored fit. Next slide, please. And this is something that we're trying to do here in national government, in line with the different directives, enabling policies that we have here in national government. So first thing first, 8-point socioeconomic agenda. We are trying to develop transportation that will help bridge these rural communities to the urban areas and vice versa, especially since some of these rural areas are also tourism areas or tourism centers or areas where it's not that explored, but it has a value of its own. And secondly, national transport policy. While much of the wording centers on urban transportation or urban areas, rural areas are also being tackled in one way or another. And this is also a consideration of ours when it comes to planning the different types of projects, programs, and policies that we have here in government. And of course, the biggest, the most overarching kind of policy that we have or even plan, that would be the PDP. So the 2023-2028 PDP. So that's where all the things related to transportation are also being called for. So here, if you look at the PDP Chapter 12, so there it's mentioned how we're trying to do transportation, trying to bridge the needs, not only in the urban areas, but also in rural areas, specifically those that need different types of transportation, not only the road-based transportation, especially yung mga maritime, which are which have different need of their own. Next slide, please. And here, and this is all being factored in how we do planning here in the DOTr. All these policies, the overall challenge, the complex of transportation that we have to deal with. So that's what we're trying to do, what we're trying to process in this approach that we have, going from all the way from planning all the way to financing it, and overall hopefully monitoring and evaluating once these projects and programs are done. But of course, along the way, while we do these types of investments, these types of policies, of course, we encounter challenges, and we have to kind of do an iterative process. And that iterative process is something that we're trying to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and trying to adjust as much as possible the policies when needed. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we wanted to first tackle here for this afternoon is really how we're trying to deal with one of the biggest needs in the country, aside from road-based transportation, which will be tackled later on, is really on maritime transportation. As we know, the Philippines is an archipelago, and many of its component cities, barangays even, are located in areas where the main form of transportation would be maritime, through ports, through their motor bangka, mga bangka, especially for the rural areas. So the DOTr, on an annual basis, is trying to keep up with investments towards improving, enhancing social tourism ports, but of course not only on its own, but through the help also and through the investments being done by one of its attached agencies, the Philippine Ports Authority. So hopefully with this compounding effort, we're able to address these growing needs with regard to transportation, especially in the maritime sector, which is perhaps one of the things that usually gets overlooked. But this is one of the core aspects, core modes of transportation that deals not only with the movement of people, but also of goods and other types of commodities that are needed by the people. And then in terms of future upcoming in the pipeline types of work streams that we're trying to do here in the DOTr, especially in the planning office, it's 2 studies, so especially related to maritime. So firstly, it's the farm to market port study. So this pertains to a feasibility study that will help try to bridge the gap between the ports all the way to the farmlands, all the way to the farms, which usually it's rested in the hinterland where rural areas, rural communities are present. So we're trying to bridge that to help with, reducing economic costs, especially by studying the problem, and then hopefully in turn doing the necessary adjustments based on those inputs from that study. Secondly, one of the main modes of transportation, not necessarily just by rural areas, but also even urban areas, it's the roll-on and roll-off, the ROROS. And one of the things that we're trying to do also with another study is to understand the nautical highways, and what improvements can be made to help reach areas that usually were underserved, but could be served later on upon study, and trying to understand the demand, the needs, and the type of vessel that would have to be procured to ensure that our vessels are very much compliant with national and even international standards, so that we're able to avoid any safety incidents of vessels, just crashing down or underperforming because of the lack of maintenance and other needs. So these are studies that are up and coming, similar to the ones that will be discussed also by Sir Glenn moving forward. Sir Glenn?
Thanks, Troy. Continuing on with the DOTR pipeline, first with the railway sector. First is the North-South Commuter Railway, which is a 147-kilometer railway line connecting Metro Manila to the regional centers of Pampanga and Laguna. But critically, it traverses numerous developing municipalities and barangays that lies between these major urban centers. Notably, it connects National Capital Region with Region 3 and Region 4A, which are notably the one of the most or highest noted to have gross regional domestic product as of 2024 using PSA data, while covering 17 cities and 6
I think we're just facing some technical difficulties. Apologies for that. Let's just wait for Sir Glenn. Thank you.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
All
Go
right.
on, please.
So the system is designed to serve around 800,000 passengers on a daily manner and is envisioned to reduce travel time from 4 hours by road. Sorry. Wala pala yung screen ko. All right. There. All right. Is my screen visible?
We can see and we can
All
see
right.
it.
Thank you. So continuing on, the NSCR is envisioned to reduce travel time from 4 hours by road to 2 hours by rail. From with Clark to Alabang, having a limited express route travel with a travel time taking of around 1 hour and 30 minutes. However, we see that the true impact of this project lies on how it connects rural areas along the corridors, like farmers in Bulacan can now access Metro Manila within an hour. Workers from provincial towns can access employment opportunities from in both Clark and Metro Manila, and rural entrepreneurs gain access to urban consumer bases as well. Currently, the project is ongoing with an overall weighted physical accomplishment of 31.82%. Moreover, the system promotes sustainability through regenerative braking, solar-powered stations, bicycle infrastructure, and is expected to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 500,000 tons annually. By connecting Clark, Metro Manila, and Laguna through a modern railway system, the DOTr and the Philippine government, as well as the public, is not just building tracks or railway tracks. We're creating economic opportunities for both urban and rural areas in between. So next is the still again in the railway sector is the North Long Haul project, which represents I think one of our most ambitious effort to integrate rural communities into the national economic framework through strategic railway connectivity. So this project, which is currently undergoing feasibility study, aims to provide comprehensive transportation, but also with the logistics component across the northern and northeastern parts of the Luzon, specifically targeting to link rural provinces in the Ilocos region and Cagayan Valley. The railway will traverse four regions, of course, connecting it with with the National Capital Region, but also having it connected with Region 1, Region 2, and Region 3. So connecting some of the Philippines' most productive agricultural areas with major urban centers and ports. In terms of the scope, it's remarkable having around 882.1 kilometer length of railway track with 23 passenger and 11 freight stations from Lawag and to Tuguegarao to Manila. But noting that this what we can see in the figure at the center of the screen, this is the master plan for this project. But for phase one, it only covers those that in the alignment that has displayed through an orange line. So this dual purpose design for both passenger and freight movements is critical. We're projecting around 7.5 million annual passengers and around 4.3 million tons of annual freight, much of which will be, or we think would be, agricultural products. The transformative impact on rural economies cannot be overstated through this project. First, the passenger travel time from Manila to Lawag will be cut from 10 to 12 hours down to just around 5 hours, while freight travel time from Port of Manila to Talavera will be reduced from 3 to 4 hours to 2.5 hours. The 11 freight station strategically positioned along the route will serve as quote-unquote consolidation points for agricultural products, manufactured goods, and mineral resources from northern Luzon's rural provinces. Towns like Santiago City, Isabela, Bambang, and Tuguegarao are expected to become logistics hubs, creating employment and business opportunities in areas that currently lack economic alternatives beyond subsistence or what we call as agriculture activities. The multiplier effects are we see is substantial. For every kilometer of railway track, we estimate economic activity expanding along an almost 20-kilometer radius on either side, encompassing numerous rural barangays. Looking south to Mindanao, we have the Mindanao Railway Project Phase 3, which demonstrates our commitment to replicating the rural development model of Luzon's railway projects in other regions of the um, Philippines. Located in Region 10, this project involves a 55.8 kilometer high-capacity intercity passenger railway system spanning Cagayan de Oro City and connecting the municipalities of Laguindingan and Villanueva in Misamis Oriental. While CDO is classified currently as a highly urbanized city, the corridor passes through predominantly rural and agriculture areas in Misamis Oriental. The system, in terms of scope, will have 9 passenger station and critically one dedicated freight station in PBDEC port, serving a projected daily passengers of around 400, more than 400,000, while facilitating the movement of agricultural products and manufactured goods. The Laguindingan station is particularly strategic, located near the airport. It will connect air, road, and rail transport, enabling rural farmers to access export markets to efficient cargo handling. This project demonstrates that railway infrastructure can be uh, an effective instrument for inclusive development by connecting rural and urban areas. We enable the rural residents to access urban opportunities without abandoning their neighborhoods, their communities, while making the agricultural products more competitive to reduce transportation costs. We create the conditions for businesses to locate in rural areas by solving the connectivity challenge. Going to the in the road transport sector, while still in Mindanao, um, what is being presented now is the VOW Public Transport Modernization Project, which takes a different but equally important approach to connecting urban and rural areas to a hierarchical bus-based system. This comprehensive project serves Davao City's vast, almost 200, more than 2,000 square kilometer land area And the system is designed hierarchically with 4 tiers specifically to ensure rural communities receive appropriate service levels. So first, the Metodavo serves the highest demand corridors to and from the city center, and with using 18-meter articulated buses operating at a more frequent headways. Second, the Davao Inter routes operate on secondary corridors from periphery centers to the city center, connecting semi-urban districts with the economic core. Third, Davao Feeder complements the main routes by serving as connectors between this, but not the least, the Davao local specific centers like Bunawan, Buhangin, 673 kilometers with 1,000 more than 1,000 stops, positioned to serve both urban and rural population. And the system is projected to serve more than 800,000 passengers on a daily basis. The project is projected to reduce travel time by 6 minutes for public transport users and a little over a minute for private vehicle users. But more importantly, it provides reliable, scheduled service to both urban and rural areas that previously had infrequent and unreliable road-based public transport services. This project, we position it as a replicable model for other large, geographically extensive cities in the Philippines, where urban and rural areas coexist with the same administrative boundaries. We can do this project. We aim to demonstrate that modernized public transport can serve as a development tool and benefits rural population while improving overall system efficiency. So going to the overarching program in the road transport sector, our comprehensive approach to reforming it is to the public transport modernization program, which specifically addresses the unique challenges in the said sector. This program has evolved through two key policy frameworks, first from the Omnibus Franchising Guideline back in 2017, which serve as the foundation for industry reform and enhanced by or to the Department Order 2023-022, also known as the Public Transport Modernization Program or PTMP, um, which improved the regulatory framework by anchoring it on service provision while integrating transport electrification and industry reform. These policies recognize that rural areas have fundamentally different transport needs than urban centers, um, from lower population densities, longer distances of travel activities, more dispersed origins and destinations, and greater dependence on transport for accessing basic services. The program has 10 components from regulatory reform to stakeholder support and communications. The priorities lie in three main elements, which are to uphold just transition, ensure efficiency and environmental soundness, and last but not the least is to uplift commuters' welfare. Our accomplishments demonstrate significant progress. Around 70, more than 75% are consolidation of units, and a little less than 75% is the routes being consolidated, representing a fundamental shift from fragmented competitive operations to cooperative service provision to TSEs. This consolidation is particularly beneficial for, we believe, is beneficial for rural areas where individual operators might struggle to maintain profitable routes. Cooperatives can now cross-subsidize rural routes with revenue from higher demand routes, ensuring continued service to remote barangays. Under this collaborative approach under the PTMP, LGUs prepare local public transport route plans or LPTRPs with technical assistance and coordination with DOTr. LGUs conduct community consultations, analyze origin destination patterns, and identify service gaps based on their intimate knowledge of local conditions. DOTr will in turn then review these plans to ensure they integrate with national transport infrastructure and align with broader sectoral strategies. This we hope or we envision to create a seamless multimodal transport network from local development to national plans. Last but not the least, let me present our strategic framework for the entire transportation sector, the Philippine Transportation System Master Plan or PTSMP, which we hope or we envision to fundamentally reshape how we think about connecting the entire Philippines, of which the overwhelming proportion are rural. This master plan will serve as the core strategic framework for developing both passenger and cargo transportation systems across the entire archipelago, with particular emphasis on integrating rural areas into regional and national economic centers or networks. The final um, output will be a comprehensive 30-year transportation master plan with an infrastructure investment program aligned with our sustainable development goals and specifically designed to address rural quote unquote isolation and enable inclusive growth. The master plan has three major expected results. First is the preparation of the master plan itself from 20 for across the 30-year horizon, providing strategic direction for investments that will also connect rural areas to urban centers and integrate the movement of agriculture products and rural manufactured goods into efficient logistics network. Second, enhancing implementation competencies like in DOTr and DPWH and other relevant transport agencies with a specific focus on building capacity in local government units to plan and manage as well transport systems. Third is the formulation of a transport data management system and data observatory that will, for the first time, provide comprehensive data on transport conditions, demand patterns, and economic impacts that will enable evidence-based decision making that equivalently accounts for rural area needs. Critically, the master plan encompasses all transport sectors from railway, road, maritime, aviation, and even multi-sector in the transport sector, recognizing that rural areas require multimodal solutions rather than single mode interventions. For island provinces, maritime connectivity is essential. For upland municipalities, road infrastructure is primary. For agricultural regions near urban centers, railways can transform logistics. And for remote provinces, aviation provides essential connectivity for high value goods and also for tourism activities. The master plan represents a fundamental shift from uh, fragmented, mode specific, urban centric transport planning to integrated, multimodal, inclusive planning that we envision that will recognize rural development as both an objective and a necessary component of national development. By systematically connecting rural areas to urban centers, and to each other. We hope to enable rural producers to access markets, rural workers to access employment, rural students to access education, and rural patients to access health care, while simultaneously enabling urban businesses to source from rural suppliers and urban consumers to access rural products affordably. This comprehensive approach ensures that every major infrastructure investment, whether across those four transport sectors, is evaluated not just for its direct benefits, economic benefits, but for its contributions in the wider economic scale, for connecting the entire Philippines from the most remote upland barangay to the port of Manila, creating an integrated national transport system that serves all Filipinos, regardless of where they live.
And I think just to end here, in terms of the overall picture of what the DOTr is doing, it's undeniable that the investments so far have leaned towards areas where there is some form of demand already, which perhaps might not um, necessarily reflect the areas of concern, especially the rural areas. But this is something that we hope to kind of improve further on, especially to develop the different policies that would help with ensuring that rural areas are able to do and to respond to the mobility demands within their jurisdiction. But aside from trying to do these investments, what we're trying to do here in the DOTr is also try to assess how can we better also leverage from the capacity of the different LGUs in rural areas, which are, as presented at the start of the presentation, they come in different forms. They are exhibiting different needs, exhibiting them different demands, and especially and foremost, different unique experiences or even aspects. So, for instance, maybe some are more logistics heavy, more farmland heavy, but others are more coastal heavy. So, that's also something that we're trying to assess, because ultimately, to ensure that transportation would become sustainable, we cannot just look at providing an area with a new infrastructure. We also have to look at the entire life cycle of the infrastructure that we will be providing. So here, what we're trying to explore also is trying to do, LGU and national government cost sharing, or even trying to understand first what the capacities are of LGUs, because ultimately LGUs are the most capable of addressing the direct needs of their own constituents. So again, as mentioned, life cycle understanding of transportation. We have to understand how capable are the LGUs in planning, in financing, based on their revenue sources. Especially rural communities might not be as capable to finance or support areas that are historically underserved. And of course, maintenance would also play a factor in terms of what type of transportation can be provided to their own constituents. And lastly, which is usually overlooked, but this is very critical, to ensure that transportation is sustainable, is monitoring and evaluation. How are not only the national government agencies, but also the LGUs, those serving rural communities, capable of monitoring the performance of their own services, and how attuned they are to trying to instinctively or iteratively do the necessary changes to ensure that the services that they're providing are responsive to the needs of their own constituents. So we're looking at this entire picture, because ultimately these are all important to ensure that one of the usual perennial problems of government, the lack of maintenance, the lack of sustainable transportation, not only in terms of how ecologically sensible it is, but also how capable we are to keep it for the long term, is ensured, even in rural communities. And maybe that's once we resolve these fundamentals of the different problems, the life cycle, and the different policies, we are able to enable the establishment, the deployment, and the use of more smart mobility types of infrastructure, especially in terms of connectivity to the network, to data, from app-based mobility devices, or what we see in other countries in Europe or even in the US, demand responsive transport, DRTs, which are trying to serve rural communities, but of course in their own expressions, in a responsive manner based on demand. And then, of course, this is slowly being seen in certain urban communities in the country. I think this was explored in Pasig. In Zamboanga, we see Grab also with the app-connected tricycles. So maybe this is also something that could be perhaps explored moving forward, in other rural communities, that maybe those residing near urban centers but are far from it could, use an app and maybe have connectivity to this type of transportation. But of course, in the most fundamental, essential level, we have to first try to assess the planning capacity, the financing capacity, the maintenance capacity, and the monitoring and evaluation capacity before proceeding forward. So all these are being done in parallel to these large scale investments in transportation, in urban areas, and with a spillover to rural communities, with the hope that maybe soon enough we're able to deliver the transportation that is needed by everyone, regardless of where they may be. So that's pretty much it for our presentation. Thank you so much for the chance to present on behalf of the DOTr. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time, I was also tasked with reading the questions from our audience. So, okay, let me start with, so Mr. Tejada asked, how can we capacitate LGUs to craft and draft their rural mobility plans without resorting to external consultancy services? So most of the LGUs have this gap as they are facing fiscal budget challenges. So is this something maybe DOTr wants to answer?
On my end, I'm not particularly sure where does the question comes from, but as we see it, engaging consulting services really do help us make the plans and the vision that we have to be implemented on the ground. But as I may know the concern that is being raised underlying that question, but I think it should be done on a gradual basis wherein, as what Ma'am Ofelia mentioned before, the technical capacity is really not there to formulate these LPTRPs. Hence, maybe these consulting services can serve as a support for them to really do an effective route planning process. But I think the key thing there is that, although to make sure that we won't be fully reliant on consulting services, one thing I noted, based on my perspective from the department, is that there hasn't really been a good documenting process where sometimes some type of lessons learned are somewhat forgotten rather than being stored for the future transport planners for the local government units, and even here in the office in the DOTr. So what happens is that there's high turnover, but also the knowledge also escapes from the institution. And I think one of the key ways in addressing that is to make sure there's a systematic documentary and lessons learned or knowledge management to make sure that the knowledge keeps on building, and that can be accessible and utilized by the transport planners in the near future.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question from Dr. Tomas Ganiron Jr. So maybe Ma'am Ofelia can answer this. So how does digital access or lack of digital access impact the ability of residents to use smart mobility solutions? Or maybe SEKI-san, if you can answer this. The access to digital devices, how does this affect the ability of residents to use smart mobility solutions?
Yeah. I think that surely depend on the condition of the telecommunication, especially in the rural areas. Because in the metropolitan areas, I think we can easy to utilize the telecommunication, 4G or 5G. But I'm so afraid the condition of the telecommunication. Then the utilization will be the depend on the that situation. So then in the Palau or Solomon cases, actually the fee for the telecommunication is still expensive compared with the metropolitan areas or another countries. Yeah, but of course, if that is very cheap, I think that is a very useful, and especially to understand the way the bus or what is the real operation.
Right.
Yes, I
Right.
think.
So that is a key ingredient or a prerequisite, right,
Mm,
for the adoption of smart mobility.
yes.
Okay, there's a question from Ma'am Christina Gutierrez. So how could the OTR assist in widening roads when the properties that may be affected are highly valued? Maybe a quick answer here.
I think Julie noted on that. We understand that there are certain cities, for instance, that given the urbanization pattern, there's a lot of vehicles on the along the roads that they have. But I think it's first important to assess why the need for road widening before proceeding with that. Because there may be other transportation solutions that could be first considered before doing road widening, because ultimately road widening is expensive, and it requires the imposition of eminent domain, which it can be an arduous legal process to undergo. So first, I guess as a first step, it's important to first understand the problem, and then why do we need to do road widening? What are the current available transportation options? And then if it's to really help improve the flow, maybe consider it as a last resort. But first, do that type of assessment so that we are able to reduce the cost, minimize the cost of doing so. Thank you.
Okay, there are many questions for DOTR. How can transport policies be better aligned with rural development and land use planning programs? Who wants to take that question? Or are there any current mechanisms for aligning with rural governments?
I think to better align the national transport policies, I think there are certainly medium for ensuring that to achieve that goal. I think one of the main vehicles that we are using to do that is through the engagement with regional development councils. We are trying to be aware and cognizant of the development plans within the region and try to kind of where can we fit in terms of national development plans where DOTR can introduce services for a certain or for a specific city, municipality, or even intercity or interprovincial. Um, that leads us to make sure that what will be comprised of in our investment program in the medium term is really responsive on the development plans of the regions as well. So there.
Okay, thank you. There's a question here for Ma'am Ofelia. So, Ma'am, from Mr. Deo Nobel of ALMEC. So, could you elaborate more on the main trip purposes of citizens in Agusan del Sur? So, do they go to different cities within Agusan del Sur for work or school, or are there more of goods movement within Agusan del Sur? So, Ma'am Ofelia,
Sorry
if
po,
you're still
ma'am.
there po.
Pwede
Okay, I'll
ma-repeat?
repeat the question. Yes. So, can you elaborate more on the main trip purposes of the citizens in Agusan del Sur? Is it more of traveling to different cities within Agusan del Sur for work or school, or the travel is more of for goods movement?
Actually, ma'am, both.
Mm.
Both kasi hindi naman lumalabas naman ang mga tao traveling sa mga adjacent cities like Butuan City. So hindi lang dito sa within Agusan del Sur. So for the mobility, both talaga. When it comes to sa inside the province, from work to home. So that's the problem for the mobility, and then yung mga estudyante, yung mga students, they are also riding public transport kasi hindi naman lahat may car dito sa rural areas. So and then even sa aming PDPFP, we really analyze na meron ding nagsa-shopping outside the province for those rich people residents. They are also traveling outside the province. So hindi naman masyado problema outside the province kasi we have bus. So meron namang bus, meron naman silang car, yung mga rich people, then they go to Butuan City and Davao City. So they can access public transport and own car. But for yung sa internal talaga within the province, yun talaga ang mas problema. Kasi sabi ko nga wala pa kasing na nag-grant ng franchise for the 19 routes that we had proposed. Kasi yung one route na merong modernized public jeepney, ano pa yon, parang van pa ang franchise niya. So it started sa lahat-lahat sa route plan. Kasi yan na ang bago ngayon. So we have the first route plan that was crafted, no? So yun then natagalan kasi pag sa approval. So balik-balik talaga kami sa route plan kasi yun ang root cause
Yun talaga.
na oo, kasi wala maka-franchise because of the route plan, and even yung capacity niyang sa mga association, yung meron ng isang route na nag-operate, nag-loan sila. So siguro yan ang mga problema sa rural. And then hindi na kahit yung social inclusion. So dapat ganyan talaga ang public transport. It should be efficient. So hindi maganda pag may fear ang mga tao kasi hindi ka sure kung anong sasakyan mo. You are not even sure na safety ka when you will ride sa mga tricycle, mga bao-bao, yung yun basta mga maliliit. So parang natatakot ka nga. Even ako pag magsakay ako niyan, natatakot ako kasi marami kasing naaaksidente. So even access to services sa school. So we know nga malaki ang land area, and then parang sprawl pa kasi yung mga rural, even we have considered urban kasi meron kaming mga big population. So may urban na mga municipalities. But still, yung sa mga rural, talagang when it comes to access to health, access to school, access to work, ang hirap talaga. So yan talaga ang situation. And then we are also leading to tourism na gusto namin. We have sports complex, we have soil laboratory, considering that it's the first state-of-the-art soil lab in the country. And then pagkatapos ang public transport namin ay hindi smart. Parang smart na ang when it comes to information communication technology, marami nang nagbe-benchmark dito sa amin sa government center. Then we have beautiful sports complex, and we have also soil lab, pero parang nati-turn off kapag ang public
Yeah.
transport is hindi efficient or hindi nga present as of the moment. Parang
Yeah.
problemahan ka pa kung saan ka sasakay. So parang ganyan lang. It's parang irony na
Yeah.
sa transport parang problema kami sa transport po as a whole.
Okay. Sige, ma'am. Thank you so much mo, Ma'am Ofelia. So, I think we're running out of time. So I would like to ask a common question to everyone. So our audience this afternoon mostly are members of the Transportation Science Society of the Philippines. So we have students, we have academics, we have also practitioners working as ENPs or planners. So my last question would be going towards how can we work together. So what do you think are should organizations like us be studying in terms of rural mobility? So maybe we can start with Ma'am Ofelia in terms of research or studies. What should we be studying first?
What should we be studying first?
Or yes, or what should we be studying in terms of how can we help Agusan del Sur?
One is technical assistance when it comes to planning, transportation planning, siguro that's one. Though na hurdle na namin yan kasi we've crafted the route plan. Pero na-experience namin ang hirap na nag-formulate kami noon. And then second is if my financing, siguro if other agencies or mga funding donors can help when it comes to public transport associations. Then also, kasi gusto natin efficient public transport. So na-study ako ng GD in Urban and Regional Planning. So nasabi ko kanina yung sa Australia, sa Adelaide. Car dependency na ang problema nila. And then patronizing public transport is also their problem. Pero sa atin nga, wala pa tayong mode of transport na maganda. So hindi pa inefficient pa. So if I want to study or magkaroon ako ng research really on the comfort kung mag-ano ka sa public transport. Kasi hindi pa talaga, uncomfortable pa talaga ang existing transport namin dito. Gusto ko malaman kung ano din ang nafi-feel ng mga tao, especially sa even sa urban we experience that. How much more yung hindi pa ako nakasakay honestly yung sa habal-habal yung yung sabi nila taxi siya kasi ang daming sumasakay ng single motor. Hindi ako nakasakay niyan but I don't know how they feel no when it comes to yung mga far-flung barangays, yung mga community. So gandang research yan if we want to know yung sa public transport efficiency ng mga probinsya kasi if hindi natin yan re-resolve, parang we are encouraging everyone to buy a car. Pero hindi yan ma-afford ng lahat ng tao. Especially yung mga poor is nandun sa mga far-flung barangays. Kasi as I've said, meron talagang sprawl pa, no? So, yan lang siguro, ma'am. Ang financing, technical assistance, yung research, yung sa public, yung paano natin ma-address yung efficiency ng public transport. Yan lang po. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Ofelia. How about Seki-san?
Hi, thank you. I think this should to have a function as the platforms to share the knowledge and skills and then techniques, especially for the staff for the LGU. I think they are always looking for how to do and
Right.
how to make a planning. Then, fortunately, not only the JICA but also for the ADB or World Bank, I think they have a lot of the, the report or similar cases, especially for the Pacific Island. They also continue to provide the webinar series. Then I think it's good, very how can I say, useful, not only for the Pacific Island, but also
Right.
for the Philippines. So that's why I appreciate so we can continue this kind of webinars. I think that will be contribute to the local LGU especially. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Maybe Troy, and then last would be Glenn.
I think for me, there are three things that maybe could be tackled more. So, firstly, for rural communities, I think it's important to understand what's the data that needs to be collected and how can we ease the process of collecting that. But included of included in that or inherent in that kind of research study or whatever it may be output, um, it's the methodology. I think it's important to discuss the methodology so that it's able to be transferred generation after generation or admin after admin, and it can be kept within the LGU or within the political unit that's managing transportation in their own jurisdictions. Secondly, I think it's important, maybe possibly, to understand the prospects of maybe agglomerating paratransit or these types of informal transportation. What are the pathways towards, maybe agglomerating 10 units of habal-habal or maybe tricycles or yung tinatawag na tricycle ng sa Mindanao or other types of paratransit, so that we're able to see, okay, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are the concerns of the different operators of this type of transportation, and how can we connect them, because ultimately, as we know, in transportation planning and operations, agglomeration is the key of the game. Individualized transportation might not be very sustainable considering the capex costs and opex costs required from that. And then thirdly, this is a bit more far-fetched. I mean, not necessarily far-fetched, but this is something also that this SOD is already doing. But I think it's important to understand the prospects also for mixed-use development and how can it encourage more walkable municipalities even. I think this is to understand how can we, already from the get-go, pave the way for more more synergy in terms of the land use. Maybe a commercial facility, it's just a walk away, or maybe just moving away just from Euclidean zoning, going all the way to performance-based zoning, so that we're able. And how can LGUs do that based on the CLUP guidelines of the SOD? So I think that's important so that we're able to already redress some of the concerns that we face with urban communities na commercial activities are very far from residential units, or residential units are very enclosed, they become enclaves. So how can we prevent that from happening, which we know causes a lot of problems within our own community? So those three main ideas, maybe those could be explored. And yeah, DOTr would definitely be amenable or maybe open to further discussing, providing insights on how can this be approached. That's it from my end. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Glenn?
Three things then for me, Doc. So first, I think in terms of the logistics in the country, we haven't much really deep understanding of where DOTR can really help make those goods more affordable by making sure that the logistics cost can really be brought down. I think there's room for opportunity. How can that be done? But the thing is, on our end, we haven't really gone much towards identifying what are the pain points in terms of logistics. And I suppose it would be distinct in the three main regions of the Philippines, and kind of have an overall mapping where what are the pain points and what kind of transport services or interventions can be done in the logistics sector to really bring down the logistics costs. Second is in terms of what Ma'am Ophel mentioned earlier in terms of resources. I think I've noticed or recognized that the department is not really good in accessing alternative or clean or smart or green financing, or even grants from other development partners as well. It would be good to have or do a research on mapping those resources that the Philippine government or even the academe, the CSOs, and even the LGUs can tap in order to make kind of a resource map for in making or informing the decision making process, how the development program or the overall portfolio of the department or even the local government units, how those additional or supplemental funding can be tapped to aid in preparing even the LPTRPs. Then I think last, I think in terms of marrying that passenger transport or passenger transport with freight, but also identifying the key indicators on how or key indicators when we look at those rural areas, how can we identify that it is right for as a transport infrastructure or even an intervention, like for example what we've discussed earlier in terms of service contacting program. How do we identify these key indicators that would guide us or inform us that this kind of service or program needs to be implemented in this rural area? And last but not, or maybe the fourth one, but final,
Fourth.
in terms of the movement of passengers, we haven't really identified the acceptable um, level of service where the user experience can really be enhanced, where the modal shift from private use, private means of transport into public transport usage can really happen. Um, we've used most of the time travel time savings, vehicle operating cost savings, but not really in terms of the quality of service, like for example the waiting time, the number of transfers, and that we envision to tie it up with the service plan of the projects of the Philippine government in the DOTr. But the link between the two on how can the reduction of waiting time for like 1 minute can really promote modal shift from private means of transport. And by that, we can set kind of a standard service level. Like for example, for a specific area, like for the greater metropolitan area, that the waiting time shall be at this level. Then that can inform the or waiting time or transfer time or the number of transfers. Then that can inform how can we develop or how the development in the region should be tailored in order for those service level to happen. So those four lang po on my end, ma'am.
Okay, so thank you very much to our speakers for giving us your insights, and I hope our audience took notes, and we at TSSP really do look forward to furthering this discussion. So from what, for example, Ma'am Ofelia or Seki-san said, it can start small, like first telling the story of what's happening in that area, in these rural areas, and then we talk about operational concerns. So my apologies to those who asked questions, but unfortunately we weren't able to read them.